But you can see the size of these. These are bigger, have more of a powerful engine. They have a boom on the back. They have outriggers. They can outrig with that vehicle and pick up just about anything. The next we have here is a Mack number 7. It's a Mack truck. It's bigger and smaller. You can see it has a winch on the front. Very, very invaluable pieces to the American Army. All right. What do you like to do? Now perhaps I'll get my marathon flight. So we're going to go back to where I kind of ended. And it's the conflict that was fought right after saving of Great Britain in 1940. So that's the only conflict that was still active in Europe. Western Europe was in actually North Africa. So
British initially won against Italians. Italians got help from the Africa, from the Germans, and suddenly Germany and Italy were on a winning streak. Britain stifled a lot of their forces to help Greeks and Yugoslavs. That failed, but that depleted their forces to a point that Africa Corps and their Italian allies reached Egypt. Now, they reached Egypt, but they were not capable of capturing a critical port of Tobruk. So the logistical lines to resupply German Africa Corps and their Italian allies were very long through the desert. Imagine for every gallon of fuel delivered, you have to burn 3 or 4. It takes a lot of logistics to do that. On top of that, British sinking their ships trying to deliver those supplies. So the port of Tobruk, siege in April of 1941, is the listing of the 1941 German efforts. They could not move on to port of Tobruk was captured. The group never captured 1941, but the lasted until November 1941. Because the British Libyan territory. Now what we have passing us here is a very typical African camouflage Canadian Chevrolet towing a British 2-pounder gun. Still relatively small. You can see the difference in the camouflage. There is a light color sand camouflage which has these weird stripes. Blue, gray, right, so such a weird camouflage vehicles. Now, African desert is a sea of sand. Anything square, rectangular, stands out like a sore thumb. Painting vehicles with those disruptive lines, camouflage markings, would break that symmetry. So that's the concept of that Western desert canter camouflage. Now the gun that this vehicle is towing is a 2-pounder. 2-pounder, an ancient way to name guns by British, actually 40 millimeters. It's probably the most capable of the early anti-tank guns. Just like you saw the diminutive 37 millimeter Polish gun, 25 millimeter gun behind the French tankette. These guns were still effective in 41, but they started losing their effectiveness. So the Italian North African campaign continued on. The initial siege of Tobruk was repulsed by British. The counteroffensive through Germans and Italians back. The siege of Tobruk lasted over 6 months, but guess what? There is a Polish angle to it. Some of the Polish personnel that was able to evacuate from Poland reformed initially in French Syria, then after the French surrender moved to British Palestine and formed a Carpathian Independent Rifle Brigade. That rifle brigade was sent via ship to besiege port city of Tobruk and stayed there for over 100 days on front line, eventually achieving a breakthrough alongside the Australians and British. So this is another Polish contribution to the Allied victory, the North African campaign. North African campaign was eventually lost by Germans and Italians. The second success that General Rommel achieved after the relief of Tobruk led to a counteroffensive which pushed the British back to Egypt to near a city called El Alamein. And that became the turning point of the war. A major counteroffensive was mounted in November of 1942 along the first participation of Americans with eventual liberation of Europe. American amphibious forces landed in French Morocco and Algeria, creating a double pincer against the Montgomery's armies in Egypt. Combined attacks of Americans from the west, British from the east, eventually pushed German and Italian forces into Tunisia, and over there led to the second great defeat for Germans after Stalingrad in January of 1943. By May of 1943, African campaign ended with German and Italian surrender. That was followed very quickly by Allied invasion of Sicily. Sicily was occupied in summer of 1943, and then subsequently Allies landed on mainland Italy in September of 1943. And that was the first time Allies landed back on the mainland Europe. Italy was at that time still an ally. Allied landings in Italy forced Italy to change sides, and Italy at the same time became occupied by Germany. Allied drive through southern Italy lasted until December of 1943. That's where Allies were stopped cold at so-called Gustav Line. A range of mountains and fortifications with the linchpin at the town of Monte Cassino. 3 attacks were mounted throughout the winter of 1943 and spring of 1944. So now we have the vehicles of the Polish Second Corps that fought during the Italian campaign. The lead vehicle is a Staghound armored car, being followed by a Fox armored car, Otter armored car, and an M3A1 American White Scout car. These are reconnaissance vehicles used as a spearhead during the Italian campaign fighting. You can see a different camouflage now. Southern Italy below Rome is not like the northern Italy, street, verdant, green Italy. It's more of a prairie. Think Texas, New Mexico, Arizona. That's why vehicles had to be camouflaged to blend in with that terrain. Leftover paint from African campaign was used to disrupt solid green or brown camo. Vehicles painted solid stone or sand were painted with naval paint with disruptive patches, just like that. Now Staghound is an American-made vehicle, but it was rejected by American Army in favor of an M8 Greyhound. British had great luck with armored cars during their African campaign, and they continued with that in the Italian campaign. And actually, wheeled vehicles in many cases performed much better on very rocky, hilly back roads of Italy. Truck vehicles experienced much higher track wear than wheeled vehicles. So basically a Staghound, the leading vehicle, can be called a tank on wheels for all intents and purposes. So Polish Second Corps that fought in Italy was formed from the first Polish army that formed from the prisoners in Soviet Russia that was able to escape Soviet Russia. They joined forces with the Polish Independent Carpathian Brigade that fought in Poznań. And again, this was the largest Polish army on Western Front. That army achieved that critical breakthrough of Gustav Line on May 19, 1944, on the fourth attempt, Allied attempt to break through the German defenses. On May 19th, road to Rome was opened. at the cost of 1,000 Polish dead and 4,000 wounded, 10% of all personnel. Only 2 weeks later, Rome was liberated. On June 4th, 1944, Rome was liberated. Why do you not remember that? Americans learned about liberation of Rome the next day, June 5th. Just to forget it very quickly, the next day when headlines announced D-Day landings in Normandy. That's why we would like to bring that to your attention, that there was another big theater of operations prior to Normandy, prior to France. Now the Italian campaign dragged on, became a secondary theater of operations, but it was experiencing very fierce, dogged rearguard action by Germans. That campaign ended in May of 1945. Polish troops, Polish Second Corps, were responsible for also liberating the port city of Ancona, another critical port to resupply Allied troops, and then eventual liberation of major city of Bologna in northern Italy in 1945. So what we see now is the British artillery. We saw the American artillery, now we're going to see equivalent the British artillery. The first to come is the AEC Matador, towing a 5.5-inch gun howitzer, very much equivalent to the American 155mm gun. Now uniquely, this is a four-wheel drive vehicle powered by diesel engine. British developed several vehicles powered by diesel. Now, AC Matador, the chassis became the basis for two other very significant vehicles. The AC Dorchester, which was an armored command vehicle, favored not only by the British Marshal Montgomery, but also his foe, Desert Fox Rommel. Also, the same chassis was used to create the largest armored car, the AEC armored car, in its final version, armed with a 75mm gun, just like on the Sherman. Now the mobility of artillery was critical. That's why you see the four-wheel drive, big balloon tires that would provide maximum flotation and traction. You see winches and tow cables that can be deployed front and rear of the vehicle to help with the placement of the gun. Now following the 5.5-inch gun is the FWD-1, used by the Polish Artillery Supply Battalion. Look closely at the side panels. There is an emblem, a white emblem, that looks like a bear. Now this is a very significant story pertaining to the Polish military heritage. They're carrying the artillery line. So the Polish troops, as they were training and forming in Middle East prior to their deployment in Italy, found at the local flea market a bear cub, a Syrian bear cub. They adopted it like a child, raised it, fed it like a baby. The bear didn't know he was a bear. The bear learned to eat human food, bear learned to eat cigarettes, then learned to smoke cigarettes, but it would toss cigarettes that were not lit. The cigarette had to be lit for the bear to eat the cigarette. Needless to say, the bear became very popular, and actually, whenever the bear wanted to, the bear would actually help to move artillery shells. That's the logo, but not reliably. You know those bears. Nevertheless, the bear earned rank of corporal. After the war, Wojtek the bear retired in Scotland to a peaceful zoo existence, died in 1965, and there are many monuments to Wojtek the bear, the Polish war bear. Alright, so we left off part of a narrative with the liberation of Rome, which was forgotten due to probably one of the best known events of World War II, at least here in the United States, and that is the D-Day landings. So my Polish narrative does not include any involvement of Polish forces in Normandy landings. Nevertheless, Polish personnel that evacuated from France after its failed campaign in 1940 was able to form a full armored division. That armored division was equipped with American Sherman tanks and Cromwell tanks. And it landed on D-Day beaches 42 days after D-Day. Like I said, Polish forces did not participate in D-Day landings, but they participated in equally important end stages of Normandy campaign at the Falaise Gap. So by August of 1944, 2 months after the landings, Germans were in full retreat. The hedgerow fighting was just about over. Patton's Drive from western France started encircling the Germans, and the British push from the beaches from city of Cannes made itself felt. Now, Germans were nearly surrounded by that time. Nevertheless, a narrow corridor, a 3-mile corridor, was left for them to escape near town of Falaise. Into that narrow gap, the Polish Armored Division, the veterans of 1939 campaign, veterans of 1940 France campaign, were asked to insert themselves and to stop the German escape out of Normandy. Now, the escaping surrounded Germans actually surrounded elements of the Polish Armored Division. For the 2 days of fighting, it was still uncertain whether Germans will or will not be able to fully escape. The escape, wholesale escape out of Normandy was deprived to Germans by the Polish Armored Division. The Polish Armored Division was formed along the lines of a British Armored Division. It had a reconnaissance regiment, a lead regiment equipped with Cromwell tanks and supporting vehicles, and 3 combat regiments equipped with Sherman tanks. So the first that we will see is the reconnaissance regiment, the spearhead of the division, led by the Cromwell tank. Now the Cromwell tank is a close cousin of the T-34. A first cousin of T-34, Russian T-34. Why? Because it was developed from the same American Walter P. Christie fast tank that was rejected by the US Army. Unlike the Russian T-34, this British derivative of the Walter P. Christie fast tank was equipped with a very famous V12 aviation engine. The Rolls-Royce Meteor, a land version of the Rolls-Royce Meteor, the same engine that powered the famous British Hawker Hurricane plane, Supermarine Spitfire, the Wooden Wonder, the Havilland Mosquito, the 4-engine bomber Avro Lancaster, and its Packard licensed version, the P-51 Mustang, one engine. The most significant aerial engine of World War II for the Allies, but also powering one of the fastest Allied tanks, the Cromwell. Now the Cromwell's biggest advantage was its speed and low silhouette. Nevertheless, its armor was relatively thin, not exceeding 3 inches, very vulnerable to the German anti-tank guns, and its gun was a derivative of a Sherman gun, a gun capable of firing the same rounds as the American M4 Sherman tank. Now, that gun in the Sherman tank, the principal gun of the Sherman gun, was derived from the gun that you saw at the beginning of the show, the granddaddy of every modern gun, the French 75. So American forces, expeditionary forces in World War I, came home with those French guns. Those French guns were used in interwar period, and that gun led to the development of the most numerous Sherman gun, the 75mm gun, and the gun on the Cromwell approaching us fired the same ammunition. So the gun that won the Allies the First World War was also instrumental in winning the Second World War. So here comes the Cromwell, a 5-man crew in a reconnaissance Cromwell. The Cromwell is also equipped with 2 machine guns, PISA, with a very unusual caliber, German caliber, a Mauser caliber in British vehicle. So reconnaissance regiment of the British, Polish and Canadian armored division also has armored personnel carriers derived from F5 Stuart light tank. But this vehicle coming to us right now, it's called the Kangaroo. It's a turretless tank, light tank, early war tank. Following that, we have a Daimler Dingo, a very nimble reconnaissance vehicle. Uniquely, Daimler Dingo has 5 speeds forward and 5 speeds reverse. And following it, it's probably the most ubiquitous Allied armored vehicle, the Universal Carrier. Over 110,000 of these were used mostly to carry infantry into the battle, but also used in variety of support roles. So here's our Canadian and Polish armored division. You can see on a white field, you see a wing of sorts. That wing represents a Polish wing hussar, Polish elite cavalry that gained its fame in 1683 by saving besieged Vienna from Ottoman Turk invasion. So that lineage of Polish wing hussar was carried through into World War II and became the emblem of the first Polish armored division. You will see that emblem on more vehicles. So after the campaign, the initial engagement of the Palais Gap, depriving German troops from withdrawing, being surrounded and surrendering over 50,000 prisoners of war at Palais Gap. Polish engagement led to liberation of another major capital in Europe. On August 26, 1944. And again, both with so the universal carrier, the diminutive vehicle, truck vehicle, was used by every allied nation, was sent also to Soviet Russia. Americans built their own version called T-16. So the Comet was not an evolutionary dead end. Actually, the Cromwell became the Comet, probably the premier British vehicle of World War II, which was better armored and better armed, almost only to an equal to a German Panther. Nevertheless, Comet, the subsequent model of Cromwell, development of Cromwell, did not enter combat until the very end, last few months of the war, and with insufficient numbers to make any difference. Thus, Cromwell is sort of the symbol of the British war effort in Europe. Nevertheless, British divisions mostly relied on American Shermans. Only their reconnaissance regiment used the British-made Cromwells. So here we come back to Lend-Lease, the arsenal of democracy. United States that was able to equip most of its allies to overwhelm Germans with sheer number of tanks, artillery pieces, planes, ships to supply those to Europe. So now we will see the main body of the Commonwealth, British, Canadian or Polish armored division. These are the Sherman regiments. Each of these three regiments had 52 Sherman tanks and 11 Stuart tanks. And they were the fist of the armored division. Initially, 3 out of 4 Shermans were the 75mm armed Shermans, and 1 out of 4 was the Sherman Firefly, equipped with a highly capable British 17-pounder. So we can see two versions of the Sherman. The lead Sherman is actually a later version of the Sherman with a long-barreled 76mm anti-tank gun, and the Sherman behind the second Sherman is the Sherman with its 75mm gun. Now the 75mm gun was an extremely capable gun in Africa and perhaps in Italy. But the German industry developed heavier tanks, which the Sherman 75mm Shermans had very hard time dealing with. Thus, the up-arming of the Sherman with the 76mm gun. Nevertheless, 75mm Shermans still soldier down. They did have still a more effective high explosive round. Now, you might be surprised, but tanks' primary purpose is not to fight other tanks. Tanks' primary role is to provide the breakthrough and support to infantry. Its primary weapons are machine guns. So Our second vehicle is a Sexton self-propelled gun. It's on a Sherman chassis. It's built in Canada, but it has a howitzer, an artillery piece that's capable of highly elevated plunging fire, something that handguns are not capable of. So in many cases, a howitzer is supposed with a sensor. And so of course, that the howitzer has the capability to do following that, we have a version of the headcraft exclusively built for landing by international harvesters. These headcrafts carry infantry that would provide immediate support to the armored units. So this Sherman again has an engine that is not a dedicated tank engine. This is again a Continental R975 aviation engine. Sherman was the second most produced tank of World War II after 2004. It was producing 4 main engine variants and 4 whole configurations. The main versions were M4 and M4A1 Shermans equipped with a radial engine. The only difference was M4 had welded hull, unlike our M4A1 Sherman, which had soft edge cast iron hull. The second version was a twin diesel powered M4A2. The third version had the actual Ford VAA V8 engine that was deliberately designed for the Sherman. The last version is our Sherman out in the field as a enjoy the full glory of the armored press of the Polish Armored Division. So the Polish Armored Division, after its engagement at the Palega, continued on its path of liberating parts of Belgium and Holland, including liberation of the without any collateral civilian damage. In many cases, Allied attacks were preceded by heavy aerial bombardments, artillery barrages, causing massive destruction to towns and villages. That was having inflicted on the city of Breda. This fact is remembered to this very day by people of Breda, celebrating the liberation of their town. Polish 1st Armored Division continued on its path of liberating parts of Holland and Belgium, ending eventually in Germany and occupying a famous German early U-boat base called Wilhelmshaven. Now, Polish involvement on the Western Front, fighting in Chile, fighting in at the end of the war. Did not lead to Polish soldiers returning back to Poland. Poland at the end of the war became a satellite state of Soviet Russia. People there were deprived of their personal freedoms, and soldiers, Polish soldiers that served on the Western Front were in many cases declared enemy of the state. So imagine Polish soldiers fighting through 3 campaigns in 1939 in Poland, in 1940 in France, and eventually liberating parts of France, Holland and Belgium at the price of their own freedom back in Poland. Their commanding general, General Maczek, has a death sentence imposed by the Polish communist government. He's not allowed to go back to Poland. Neither are many of his soldiers. Those that do risk going back to Poland are persecuted, some of them executed, imprisoned, denied common dignity and employment. Only after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1989, 50 years after opening shots of World War II, did Poland regain its full independence. I want to bring that fact to your attention because it's a cautionary tale. Poland's history has relevance to today. What's going on in the world, for example in Ukraine, has great similarity. There is a dictator that is on the verge possibly of unleashing a war, if there will be no political will to stop him. World War II was preventable. Hitler could have been stopped in numerous places. In 1935, 1938, 1939, World War II did not have to happen, but there was no political will to do that. That's why 50 million dead, because that is the casualty toll, civilian and military in Europe, of World War II could have been prevented. So hopefully that will not happen again. And this really strikes home here in the United States. World War II in Europe was not just a European conflict. Not a single German combatant landed on US soil. Still, over 200,000 Americans died in Europe, fighting to liberate oppressed people in Europe. So just because it happens far away doesn't mean that it will not knock at American doors again. So this is one lesson of history that cannot be forgotten. The next, all right, here comes our M4 Sherman, the standard tank of World War II. This is the early version with a 75mm gun and a 30-cylinder multi-bank Chrysler engine comprised of 6 truck engines on a single crankshaft with 5 carburetors. This is one of 4 in the world, only 4 that are actually powered by that original engine. There is a claim, further claim to fame to this very example. This is Murder Inc. from The Fury. One thing about armored warfare, and you are witnessing it firsthand, is a tremendous consumption of fuel. Our tank went through what I'm being told about 50 gallons of fuel idling for the past hour and making those few rounds. So you can imagine the logistical strain supporting an armored division that it took. This is going to be a theme of our next segment, the unsung heroes of the war effort, the supply element. Familiar with the progression of campaigning Western Europe after initial D-Day landings and breakout of Normandy. Paris was liberated, southern France was invaded as well. Germany was pushed almost back to its frontier. There was hope of crossing the German border in 1944 in a very bold action called Market Garden, the largest airdrop of paratroopers and glider-borne troops in history. Unfortunately, that did not pan out well for Allies, so the war dragged on. Germans mounted a counteroffensive in December of 1944 called the Battle of the Bulge. That brought initially Allied forces nearly to a breaking point. Now, the main purpose of the German counterattack at the Bulge was again to deprive the Allies of logistical Antwerp. The 180 gallons of fuel that this German needs to supply needs to come from overseas, needs to come to a port. Initial ports in western France and on Normandy beaches became very distant, just like in case of Tobruk. Allies needed a closer resupply port. That ideal port was the port of Antwerp. So German counterattack in December of 1944 was done to drive a wedge and reach Antwerp to deprive Allies of the resupply in Antwerp. Opinions differ how close Germans came to that goal, but they were of course deprived. Initial success was achieved by help of bad weather, which denied Allied air supremacy. But once the weather cleared, once highly mobile American and British divisions could meet Germans, the Germans started losing that engagement, especially that they have not reached the depots, Allied depots. The German gambit dependent on reaching Allies' supply depots where they could capture fuel, especially fuel needed for their continuous drive to reach Antwerp and split the Allied front into two. That shows the strain that the Allied war efforts, the war on two fronts, on Russian front and Western front and Italian front, had on German economy. The aerial bombing, 1,000 plane B-17 Liberator, Lancaster raids on German industry, again strained severely production. The drive on Romanian oil fields of Ploesti forced Germans to make synthetic gas. Now, unsung heroes of the armored division, even though Allies did have aerial superiority, there was still minor threat of German planes to protect Allied columns. 40mm Bofors guns were deployed as most common Allied gun. This gun was developed in 1936 and became probably the most significant Allied medium caliber anti-aircraft gun. Developed in 1936, was also used by the Polish Army in 1939 and became the mainstay of both American, British Army and American and British Navy. The double and quadruple anti-aircraft gun that you see shooting down kamikazes are naval versions of this very famous gun. This gun is owned by a Bedford QLB. What we have following Bofors gun is a Bedford 3-ton OY, Bedford OY, the principal British 3-ton supply truck. Following that is another Canadian vehicle, a Dodge P60. Again, a vehicle manufacturing almost 200,000 examples. Following that is a Canadian military pattern, CMG Chevrolet, look at the logo. Again, a vehicle used in various roles, mostly resupply in various tonnages. Quarter-ton, three-quarter-ton, ton and a half, and 3 ton. Fordson WT2 3-quarter-ton vehicles following a Bedford MW, a water bowser, a water tanker. And last and not least, or maybe least but not last, a Hillman Tilly, a little vehicle, dispositional vehicle, so that the troops can get their mail, their laundry can be picked up, and so that the local pub can be visited in style. Again, supply columns of the Allied Armored Division. Again, Polish Wings Hussar emblem on each of these trucks. Now, we always refer to America as the arsenal of democracy, Lend-Lease. America being able to produce armaments for every Allied nation to overwhelm Germans with just sheer number. But don't forget, America means that, not just the United States. Canada built, Canadian industry built about 900,000 vehicles for the Allied war effort. And again, we have at least 2 examples, the Dodge and the Chevrolet. Both of these are Canadian built. So a small nation of 11 million at the time still contributed very significantly to the Allied victory. Keep in mind, the army fights on stomach. If you cannot resupply the army might not be very motivated to fight for long. Morale is important. Simple fact that the army can read letters back from home was extremely important. As I mentioned, nearly 70% of all units, wartime units, were supply and rear echelon units. So, big part of Allied victory, why Allies could achieve victory, is the strength of the industry, the ability of American industry to convert from civilian production to wartime production, and to do it extremely quickly. Not only the legacy companies were involved in war production, Chrysler, Northrop, GMC, Chevrolet. Think of even Smith Corona. Instead of making typewriters, Smith Corona would make rifles. So every manufacturer with any capability to produce armaments switched most of its production to armaments. And that's how US Army, that was in 1940, the 17th army in the world. Imagine, in 1940, American soldiers trained with broomsticks and Mach tanks. Within 2 years, it built itself into the mightiest army, fully mechanized army in the world. All right, so we've mentioned about the failed Allied attempt to end the war in 1944 with a very daring market garden drive through Holland across the Rhine at Arnhem. 3 major Allied airborne divisions were dropped along the way. They were tasked with holding critical crossings over bridges with the hope that the Allied armor could reach them and create a corridor across the Rhine into Germany. 82nd American Airborne was involved. 101st American Airborne was involved, and on the furthest point, the 1st British Airborne. But there is a Polish angle. Now, for you who watched Bridge Too Far, you might remember Gene Hackman and the grumpy character that he portrayed of General Sosabowski. So, Polish personnel evacuated from France was sufficient to form an independent parachute brigade. And Polish brigade participated in that daring drop. Nevertheless, airborne troops are very lightly armed. Their heaviest artillery pieces, such as this pack howitzer, had to be transported in wooden fuselage gliders. 75 pack howitzer. Their best anti-tank gun was the 6-pounder 57mm anti-tank gun. Again, wooden fuselage is clad in fabric. What can go wrong? Also, the troops at the furthest point in Arnhem were not dropped on their destination, were dropped about 7 miles from their destination. So the element of surprise was lost. That engagement, the last furthest drop at Arnhem, unfortunately led to British defeat. 200 of Polish glider troops with their anti-tank guns were able to land in Osterbeck together with British and fight it out to the last day on the 27th. The main body of the Polish Independent Parachute Brigade could not land until the 21st, 22nd and 23rd of September, but on the near side of Rhine in Driel. So Polish forces were tasked with establishing contact with the surrounded British paratroopers, and they were able to extricate about 2,700 British survivors across Rhine at a great cost to themselves. Imagine this lightly armored division combating fully armored German units. Again, for those who didn't see the movie, I strongly recommend you do see Bridge Too Far. It's a very good representation of those events. Market Garden was not the last drop of paratroopers. That last drop and the final offensive into Germany was delayed until March of 1945 with crossing of the Rhine, a wholesale crossing of the line At that time, Allies were able to build up enough materiel and superiority in materiel that their drive into industrial area of Germany, the Ruhr Valley, Saar Valley, was final, and it led to a complete German defeat in May of 1945. But again, these are the heroes of the failed airborne attempt, first British Airborne Division and the Polish Independent Parachute Brigade. Now, this was a very bittersweet engagement for the Polish Parachute Brigade. They were specifically formed and they trained to help with the uprising in Warsaw, which started in August. Now, Warsaw Uprising was the largest uprising by underground army in occupied Europe. It lasted for 2 months. It eventually ended with a Polish defeat and tremendous loss of about 250,000 civilians and combatants. You can imagine the bitterness of the Polish Parachute Brigade that was denied to be able to help their countrymen in Poland and tasked to fight a battle in Holland. Again, that adds to that Polish experience, the bitterness of the Polish experience. Poland suffered the highest attrition rate of any combatant nation. Poland lost 18% of its pre-war population. Nearly 1 out of 5 Polish citizens died. Nearly 6 million Polish citizens died during 6 years of war. And that's mostly through brutality of German concentration camps, summary random executions. In all fairness, some of those casualties were inflicted by Soviets as well. But again, Polish experience is one of the bitterest experiences of the war.
All right. So what can we have? Let's send T-34. Well, let's trade some people Sexton for. Yeah, let's send A1 Sexton Cromwell. Is Cromwell running? Cromwell is low on gas. How can that happen? Listen. He said he did it. The A1 will be good. The A4 I gotta be good. I mean, that is inexpensive. Good. Let's refuel them and make a run in an hour. There's going to be no victory. All right, we need to refuel. Refuel. Okay,
Well, good afternoon, everybody. The day is not over. That's right. Working on getting the remaining rides for the day set up, so please stand by for that. I want to thank all of our vehicle drivers today for the great work that they do. I want to thank you too. I mean, like I said, we're going to be here for a while. We'll be back tomorrow, so hopefully you'll join us tomorrow morning at Wheels of Liberation. So let's give a hand to all the people who maintain the vehicles, who drive the vehicles, and make this happen each and every year. All right. Great job, everyone.
Only the people riding, there's only 2 people can ride at a time on the T-34. The other 2 have to stay here. So, you gonna escort them? Okay, so these 2 are going to half track, L track, and 2 of them are going to the T-34. Okay? Just so nobody crosses, if you can just put up your flag so they just don't know to just run out on the field. Where is the Hellcat from here? Okay. There's the T-34, wait a minute. Yeah, I'll let you guys know. You show them where you're going, how's that? All right, so the first... You guys run what?
All right, you're the first two, so come on out.
Did you pay for the half track?
So he's going on the 234.
Okay, so I got 2 more gonna go home on the half track. So let me take care of that.
Yes, Mike said anything.
All right, these 2 are also on the half track.
All right, am I taking all 4 of them over now?
Yeah, 4 to the half track. These guys, and then 2.
Okay. So half track come with me.
Hey! Look at it! You stay over here.
Are those the 3 o'clock rides?
What?
Catch up with them?
Where are you going? No, they're not going yet. No, that is the half track, the 234, and the one other vehicle. Okay? The reason the Sherman isn't going yet is we got a new one. That was the problem.
Right.
Okay? Okay. Someone's sitting on their radio. Don't you love that?
And I don't care if I never get back for a zoo for the it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3, 6, you
Is the camp now open again?
They're on a ride. No, that's okay. They're just moving vehicles because they're going to be on a ride. Okay? I swear. Yeah?
All right, I'm going to take off my flight for 2 hours.
Don't remember that, huh? Did you get to say bye to Al, or you'll just text him when you get home?
I'll take my get home when I get on. I presume it's down that way somewhere.
Oh, I have no clue. I'm his wife.
Well, I'll text him either way.
Yeah, you'll get in touch with him, I'm sure. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Take pictures in the bushes?
They're not right at the moment. We have people going on the T-34 that pay for rides on the T-34, so we're trying to get those. Okay? Yes.
No,
The ticket is good for tomorrow.
I can go over there and take pictures?
Yeah.
I'll be hiding in the bushes.
Thank you. If I see you, you're not hiding.
Ride now.
Yeah, they have people that pay for rides, and we had them all full. So if worse comes to worse, you come back tomorrow.
Okay.
You can come early in the morning, just have them bring his ticket back.
Okay. So what? For now, we all have to stay back.
Yeah, because they're going to run the vehicle. Yeah. I request you don't videotape me, and that's my right to do that.
It was still images. Click, click, click.
Okay.
We need that out here anymore.
I'm saying like here and see if there's time.
red stripes and see how
Vince, I'm sorry I couldn't hold it up, but I know you have some room, so thank you so much for giving us some shape. I really apologize for not holding it up. Wait, please, now there's business.
Your dainty dresses, your sweet caresses, your second guesses. But so hard, your smile so pretty, and words so witty. Oh, what a pity. Very easy, remember, but so hard
How much I'm gonna miss you and kiss your photograph. Be sure that I'm not oh, won't hear me lie. I may sound silly, I know that it's over, and it's easy.
Oh, yeah. Now.
That's so hard.
Our next song is our old favorite, More Than You Know. And that's how much we all think about you now. Go ahead, Gracie. More than you know, more than you know, man of my heart, I love you so. Lately I find you're on my mind, more than you know, whether you're none of my heart I sing along. You make me more than you'll ever loving you the way that I do. There's nothing I can do about it. Loving may be all
Nobody did.
I didn't see you before.
No, I've just been walking around. Yeah, I'm just here to visit today. So, I'm the only Frenchman apparently.
When did you arrive?
Oh, like 10, maybe 9 or 10, I think. It was earlier.
I was supposed to be to the time of demonstration. It was 2 accidents on.
Oh, shit.
So I spent maybe extra hour lost.
You didn't get to see it?
No, I lost all Russian part. Yeah.
The only thing they have really is the T-34 anyways.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's 80% probably.
Did you go see the Soviets down there?
Not yet.
So if you walk around and around the trees, the Soviets are beyond the trees.
Yeah, I know.
So 193rd and
I know from the last year.
Yeah, in the same spot.
Yeah.
It's Boris, right?
Same pieces on the same spot, same people, same reenactors.
Same people every time. Well, I noticed you. I saw your camera. Очень приятно. Good to see you.
Tomorrow, you will be here tomorrow, no?
I'm going home.
Say hello to everybody I know.
I will.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, we'll be shouting hallelujah all the day. Oh, we'll have a jubilee down in Memphis, Tennessee, and we'll shout hallelujah all the day. And we'll shout hallelujah all the day.